Okay. Oh my god, that was not it.
Are you up to date on House of the Dragon, Prime?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. I I thought that last episode was just amazing. Yeah, we didn't end up talking about it before the reverie. But it like what an ending, I thought.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
just like a whole episode was just like, great all the way through.
Good performances, yeah, and good twists. I'm rooting for Rhaenyra. She's my queen.
I know. In case you don't know, Dr. Greg, our friend Corey here is like really into Rhaenyra from House of the Dragon.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do you watch House of the Dragon?
And Prime is on the opposing faction.
Yeah, yeah. So she's the blonde queen in the new Game of Thrones House of Dragon. Yeah, yeah. I like the other one, which is I think Emma Cook is the actor. Is that her name?
Yeah, Emma Cook.
Like she's the other opposing faction.
The not queen.
The not queen. But look, she's beautiful. Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. She's so freaking beautiful. F that.
No
comparison. He got
to
a big
Rhaenyra.
old crush, and so now he's choosing the wrong side. Actually, no, I actually like. I know. I actually like Rhaenyra too. I don't know. But in the end, these are all terrible people, right? In the end, because
in the end, probably, yeah.
Yeah. Like there's a lust for power on all sides, and there's a effort to like hide that behind all kinds of excuses and like quote unquote legitimacy. Like there's no legitimacy here. And something that I liked about the original Game of Thrones, like my one of my favorite lines, which I can't remember exactly now, but like it basically goes like it's like near the end of the show. And do you remember how Jaime Lannister, he was working with that he was basically like a mercenary type guy. Do you remember him?
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like in a bar like near the end. What'd you say?
The Hound.
No, Jaime Lannister.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
The guy who was missing a hand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Jaime Lannister, he was working for a mercenary, and the mercenary is in a bar, and he's talking to someone else. I can't remember his name right now. I have to look it up. And he says that like these kings, right? They were thieves beforehand, right? Like you look at me differently, but like these guys are just better killers than anyone else, right? It's like they hide behind this idea of like royalty and I guess like divine destiny, right? Like like the gods chose me. No, you were just better killers, right? You were better killers, and you killed enough until like you were on the throne, and then from there, you said you always meant to be there. And I love that look. I love that look at history, right?
Yeah,
you're just better killers. The Targaryens, right? What did they do? They just like showed up in Westeros like one day, 3 of them, and they just burned army after army after army until people stopped sending armies, and they're like, okay, we're kings. We're in charge now.
Yeah, but it was our destiny, Brian. It was a destiny.
Yeah, right.
I chose me.
Yeah. I mean, like the king of England, right? Like, what is his line? There was some killing, right? There was some thieving, there was some killing, at some point in the past, and they just did it so much better than the other guys. Done.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I agree.
But it is Rhaenyra's destiny. That is
okay. His lady love.
I'm not biased.
Sorry, distracted once again.
You're good.
Yeah. So you ready to get started?
Yeah, are you guys streaming? You guys on?
I'm about to
I'm
go live in a
streaming.
moment.
Okay,
And
cool.
yeah, I
I
saw
put
the link in the
the-
chat.
Okay, cool.
1 second. Mhm. One moment.
I mean, we can just get started now. We don't have to wait.
That's
right?
true. Yes.
Actually.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm ready.
All right, cool. All right, guys, big news week on here, the Anti-MAHA headquarters, your weekly science and news wrap up. I think there's just a lot of news, and honestly, that didn't really get into mainstream coverage, just because there's so much other news going on, obviously with Plattner and all that kind of stuff. But man, there was a lot in science and health this week. So first up, really the for the first story that we're having today, former CDC official describes the pure chaos of RFK Jr. sought to transform the health agency to take over a vaccine panel. So I just wanted to go over this first, just because of how it is such an example of how it just it permeates, and we're going to see in the coming stories just the problems that are coming because of this. A former top official at the CDC and prevention described, quote, pure chaos at the health agency as Health and Human Services Secretary RFK sought to drastically transform its policy and personnel. In an interview with Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan, airing Sunday, former CDC Chief Medical Officer Dr. Deborah Howery, who resigned from the agency in protest last summer alongside 3 other top officials, described the turmoil and concern inside the agency. Among the key issues, the June 9th, 2025 removal of experts from key vaccine advisory panels, as well as Kennedy's refusal to receive a briefing on the ongoing measles epidemic from the agency's top medical official. Which that in and of itself, I imagine us going through an unprecedented measles epidemic, and he literally just doesn't care. Misinformation he has spread about the measles vaccine, and his general refusal to recognize the facts that did not fit his agenda. Quote, science doesn't change based on who is office. So when things were happening, I knew this was different than before, she said in her first interview. And it's just, hey, Buckle, it's just wild to me how, from here, it started at the top, right? It started as soon as they came in, and if science has predictive qualities, like how are things going to be different, right? How are things going to be impacted from this? And it's just interesting. I feel like the from the inside, they felt it at the very beginning. Within the first couple of months, within the CDC, they could see it coming, and they could see it happening, and people were already resigning about it.
Yeah. And what's well, there's many things interesting about this article, but let's say it's a little bit kind of like black pilling, so to speak, because like at least from what I gather from the article in terms of like what they were saying, it's like they originally stuck around because they thought like, well, at least having some guidance here is probably better than nothing. Trying to at least do some good. But then at least from the tone of the article, what I got is like, well, she eventually like got hopeless, or like she couldn't stay in the institution while its integrity and pretty much everything is like being eroded, and she kind of like then was more or less like, well, had to, I guess, follow her conscience and like resign, which is not a good sign, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
And then,
Um,
yeah, the fact that she also brought up of like, if I remember correctly, from the article of like she was understandably and I think valid criticism of RFK Jr. Of RFK Jr. had this criticism of these institutions of like they have all these conflict of interests, but then based off of what she described, based off of the article, is
mhm.
that all the appointees and I think RFK himself. They did not subject themselves to the proper vetting of like conflict of interest, or they did not fully disclose their potential conflict of interest. And so no surprise, the hypocrisy, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, completely unvetted, completely educated on these issues. I mean, and these people are she's an ER doctor. So 11
Yeah,
years at the CDC. I mean, so she is absolutely qualified in order to speak on this.
I mean, yeah.
But
If not who, I don't know who else would be, because yeah, as you said, long time member of the CDC, and I think it's over a decade of ER experience, or like
yeah,
clinical experience, if I remember correctly from the article.
yeah, exactly. So real quick, and then I just wanted to preface this article, and then we can immediately go into what is actually happening. What are the problems? And then we have another. We have confirmation now this week. So the second story now. The second story is the Air Force trainee in San Antonio in Texas died from the flu. So we're already seeing we have the unprofessionalism, the unseriousness of RFK Jr. coming in, changing all these things, changing the vaccine mandates. Pete Hegseth, who's honestly just a Saturday morning B team Fox News host. He has no idea what he's doing. So he takes this and makes they have a flu outbreak. And so now it is confirmed. The case of the death of the Air Force trainee who died last month at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio was influenza. That we covered it at the time, that outbreak, and sure enough, we know that that person died, and now there it is. So his obituary, um, the mortuary, the autopsy showed that apparently, according to the representative Joaquin Castro. So influenza swept the Air Force Base in June, 1 month after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth made the flu shots voluntary rather than mandatory. Nearly 300 troops had been sickened by influenza. So it's already having an impact.
Yeah, and obviously tragic, for sure, and pretty much as highlighted in the article, almost certainly preventable. And it's like, I don't think we should let people forget about this moving forward. And also,
Mhm.
uh, how insensitive, should we be, or are we allowed to be, so to speak, in terms of you know, one of the talking points, at least what I heard, during the heights of the pandemic, it's like when people were pointing out the death toll, a lot of the from my perspective, at least from what I heard, is like a lot of the conservative talking points is like all the comorbidities. So like, oh well, these are people with comorbidities that are dying. Should we just hound the fact of like should be asking the question? Would it be insensitive to ask, well, what's the comorbidity of this person here? As in, like, is it just comorbidities? As in, do they have a weak immune system, or are they just not healthy, and therefore, like, is this a death that's not so tragic, or let's say to downplay it, as many people I think did during the pandemic? I don't think that would be a good thing, but I'm curious how they would react if we started doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Your thoughts, Prime? Like just already seeing the impact directly related. Now we know that this person actually did die of the flu.
Um, I mean, expected, right?
Yeah.
So there's not much to say there. I mean, like, don't take the flu vaccines, and then someone out of the large organization that is our military is going to die from the flu. Yeah, yeah, that kind of is what it is. I like what Corey was talking about. Where there's this whole discussion about comorbidities and how like, well, that just explains it. You go, well, I mean, they had something else, and so they died. Well, that was actually the point, right? That was one of the things that we um
You want to
that
protect the vulnerable.
the
Yeah.
pro vaccine was talking. Yeah, the vulnerable. Yeah, You know what's another comorbidity? Like just being young or being old, right?
Mhm.
Like these are things that affect a person's ability to fight an infection. We know this, and so we try to make sure those individuals are protected themselves, and then have a sphere of protection around them. People less likely to pass on the virus, right? But like, oh, it was a comorbidity, so like it's like not that big of a deal. Like it wasn't COVID by itself, right? Like it's like searching for, and you've seen this before, right? Like uh there's a certain number of police shootings, right? People, of all races, frankly. And like what the media or conservatives who pretend to be pro cop will do is like, well, this person was no angel, right? You have to find the perfect victim, and then well maybe care about that, right? Like, oh, they did something wrong in their lives. They might have smoked weed at some point, right? Like, and so they were no angel, right? And I just relate this to this, like, oh well, they're not the perfect victim, the perfect patient. Something else was wrong with them, and so I guess it's not a big deal. So yeah, I just like the where Corey went with that.
And I would like to even push that, extend it even forward. Again, I don't think, I would hope that, we never let the other side forget, especially like, so from what I remember in terms of, Pete Hegseth's rhetoric about,
Mhm.
he's all about, having the most formidable, lethal military. And I think that's one of
Mm.
the reasons why, I think he's largely against having women serve in the military. I think he sees them as weak, or like you can't have an effective, deadly military if it includes women. Uh,
Mhm.
but then, at least in my mind, you can make the argument of like, well, aren't these people then like, if you are recruiting like the most lethal and like healthiest recruits, how are they just falling ill to the flu and then having one die, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that not is not a testament to that their selection process must be off? Because they say that if you're healthy, you're pretty much not going to get sick, right? You have to rely on your immune system. So at least for me, the logic follows like, well, like
Yeah, this is
you are
a
clearly not
selected
recruiting
population.
the healthiest
Yeah.
population. So how can you have the healthiest, deadliest military if like you're not selecting for the right people? You're not selecting for the healthy people, right? They don't need vaccines because if you're healthy, you don't need a vaccine. So
Yeah.
you must
Yeah, yeah,
be selecting unhealthy people.
Or they're
yeah. This
lying.
is
That's their thing. That in their mind, you're only sick if you're lying and you're a bad person. So I guess they're
Exactly.
only taking
But we
it.
have 300 people, so that's quite a bit of people. It's
Yeah.
like you're letting all
yeah.
these unhealthy people with defective immune systems in. How do you
Well,
how do you how does that square with the most lethal, deadly military?
yeah, this is selected population, and like you would expect that among the military, you would have averaged out, right? Just a more healthy, fit portion of the population than represented in average, right? Um people who are a bit more hardy. But like yeah, like it doesn't matter if you can run a mile or two, right? Like with a heavy a backpack or something. Like yeah, your microbes are still going to do what they do. That's your body, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I
Like,
agree with that. I know that, but you may
yeah,
make the
yeah.
case against that.
But I just but you would think that like among the if this population cannot fight this off and you know be like have better outcomes, then like what can you expect of of more vulnerable populations, which
True,
is like
absolutely.
everybody else, or someone that they care about. So that person, like the yes, you have the army uh soldier, whatever, right? Army
Mhm.
member. He's as healthy as RFK, the way he's healthy in the way that RFK defines it, right? And that like, well, yes, he gets these sicknesses, but he's able to fight them off, right? His immune system, has gotten used to it or whatever, right? Like he's like, he's now self immune. But this person leaves the base and then interacts with like the people he cares about, which would include people who are vulnerable. Maybe his mother, who's like, in the hospital for some chronic disease, right? Like, or other people within that hospital as well as he's passing by. This individual can still spread it. I mean, like, I don't, unless I'm missing something, RFK doesn't think that like diseases spread are like communicable in the way that we understand them to be communicable. That's a possibility too. Who knows, right? But
I
if
think
they're
he's crazy, but not
communicable,
that crazy. I think he believes in communicable, but he would
yeah.
not surprise if he has some weird ideas about other things. But I think
Yeah, but like if these things are still communicable, right? If you can still be infectious, even if you're not showing symptoms and not succumbing to it, right? Well, then it would still follow that you could that healthy person, unless they are only around other people as healthy, would still like go to populations that he understands are vulnerable. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Especially in an all volunteer service, so you need as many people that they possibly want. And my frustration with like writing off people that have um, lost the genetic lottery or have another disease that puts them immune compromised or something like that. It's just like, how is that a feeling of freedom? That if I get to a
I
certain
agree.
period, a certain age, I'm not going to be like welcomed into retirement. I'm going to be shuttled off to the slaughterhouse, because it's, I have to die for the
Just self
economy.
quarantine for the rest of your days. No
Yeah,
problem.
exactly. So it's like you don't really feel liberated in that society. Um, but it's not just he's not just having an impact here, right? We see, and Prime is right. Like the vaccine is completely, it helps mitigate the most dangerous outcomes of a viral infection. And we have another one where um these parents are basically in this Maha movement for our next article, are basically being told wrongly that the vitamin K shot that is given to babies as they get into the world, basically they don't have the clotting factors that they need in order to stop a brain bleed. So what we found is that we give them a shot of vitamin K as opposed to giving them a blood transfusion later. It's a lot safer. It's a lot safer. You can actually stop the brain bleed as it's happening. You don't have to worry about a lot of other impacts on that. So Maha is basically created this idea that you can that as soon as they come out of the womb, now they're pumping them full of these toxins and that kind of stuff, and you have to stop everything. And um, they think that the vitamin K shot is a vaccine erroneously. So
Mhm.
now you have people saying no to this, which is a huge problem. Doctors, as parents reject vitamin K shots, some babies develop devastating bleeding. Doctors described treating Blaine and abdominal hemorrhages in infants who hadn't received the routine injection. Several said that the images of those patients were seared in their minds. When the mother arrived with her newborn, blood oozing from the umbilical cord stump, Dr. Jessica Kirk and a nurse were alone in a small pediatric emergency room in Florida. After 2 decades in medicine, Dr. Kirk, a pediatric hospitalist now practicing in Alabama, usually has an idea of possible diagnoses within moments of meeting a patient, but she hadn't seen this before. As the nurse took vital signs, Dr. Kirk called her medical director. Oh no, she recalled the director saying upon hearing the child's name. The parents, the director said, had declined the vitamin K injection newborns routinely receive to help blood clots. Without it, infants are vulnerable to spontaneous bleeding. This baby was hemorrhaging internally. Within minutes, he was cold, high pulse, blood pressure low. Dr. Kirk recalled she gave IV fluids, an emergency dose of vitamin K. So it wound up having to get the vitamin K shot anyway, and a plasma transfusion, all while trying to arrange a transfer to a neonatal intensive care unit. Shout out to the NICU nurses.
Absolutely.
The baby's abdomen became firm from blood flooding into it. He started to fade out of consciousness. And just the stats now. So it was 2021, and the number of parents refusing the vitamin K shot had begun to increase quietly enough that encountering a baby who hadn't received it still shocked Dr. Kirk. Now many doctors see it regularly, and bleeding cases are accumulating. A study of electric medical records found that 5.2% of babies in the US went without a shot in 2024, up from 2.9% in 2017, meaning tens of thousands more unprotected babies. And more than 15 doctors told the New York Times they had observed a further increase in the past 2 years. The resulting hemorrhages aren't tracked nationally, but experts estimate as many as 1 in 60 untreated infants, 1.7%, will suffer a bleed in the first week of life, and another fraction of percent within 6 months. So this is going up and up. We have almost
Almost a
nearly
doubling of the
doubling.
percentage,
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. Which is like preventable. People didn't even see this before. This wasn't even a thing that physicians were even seeing, and now they're seeing it. That 1 in 60 untreated infants.
Yeah, and there was, so obviously a very sad story and sad state of affairs, and there was a lot of very harrowing descriptions in the article. Unfortunately, well, understandably trying to paint the reality of the consequences of people rejecting or parents rejecting the vitamin K shot for their newborn infant. But there's, at least in my mind, there's an interesting paragraph at the end that when I read it, I had somewhat mixed feelings about it, and I'm curious how you guys feel about it. So I'm going to read it
Mm.
as in, so it's just like the last paragraph or so, or like technically last three. But Dr. Kirk meets many parents on the worst days of their lives. She looks them in the eye. She said, and tells them, "quote I just want you to hear this from me and remember my voice saying this to you. This is not your fault. There's no way you could have seen this coming. There's nothing you could have done differently." End quote. And then it goes on to, in closing, she looked this mother in the eye and told her it wasn't her fault. She meant it. She knew the woman had believed she was acting in her child's best interests. And then another quote from the doctor. "But what I could not bring myself to say to her was, there's nothing you could have done," Dr. Kirk said. "I just couldn't say it." And at least for me, and I might just misinterpreting, but so I think I understand the sentiment of the doctor. Like they're trying to understandably be compassionate, as in like in the doctor's mind, they can understand like in from the parents' belief perspective, the genuine belief, like they were acting with good intentions, as in they believed, they had the true belief that the vitamin K shot was a bad thing, and so they made the decision, and therefore that's why she says to the parents like, "There's nothing you could have done differently." But then she like revises it, or she says that what she can't say is that there's nothing you could have done. But even that framing itself, like, and I understand, it's, let's say, where is it appropriate to like blame parents for whatever quote unquote genuine false beliefs? But I don't know. I find, yeah, I go back and forth on like, is that an appropriate
I
response? Like,
I feel like so I had to read that paragraph a few times actually, because I felt like I was misunderstanding something. And I think you're running into a similar issue. One, the first quote when she like that spiel she usually gives to parents, I think that's just like any group of parents, right? Like their
All of
child could
nature.
have like yeah, like all of them, right? Like the child could have fallen any number of illnesses, right? Maybe a genetic disorder or whatever, right? Or something, right? That like, hey, and or just things happen to babies, that's unfortunate. Things happen to children, it's really unfortunate, but like life happens to them, and then that speech is appropriate for them. Like, hey, like you were
mm,
just trying to do your best. You were just trying to manage them the best, and there's nothing you could have done, right? And this is not your fault. That's probably appropriate for like most people who come through there. But then like so that part's bracketed off, right? But it's not so obvious in the paragraph. And then she's transitioning to the other parent, the woman that's in front of her, right? Earlier, it talks about how she like this woman is watching the doctors, white faced, as they're trying to save her baby's life, right? um and like for her she can't say like this is not your fault, or you could have done something, could have done better, right? Like she's making a distinction that you're not, that this woman is not like those other parents. This was foreseeable, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know what like medical advice this particular woman was given, who was part of this anecdote, but like, assuming that like the medical staff did their job, right, and like let her know, hey, I understand you're trying to refuse this, this shot, this medication, but like if you don't, these are the possible consequences, right? In that case, yeah, she fucked up. She made the wrong choice. The article in another area talks about like what we all know, what we've discussed before, that so many of these parents end up in like who are concerned and want to do the right thing, and who are looking for advice, end up in Facebook groups, right, taking advice from a whole other set of idiots. Like, maybe these random people aren't the best source font of information, right? These random people you don't know, whose like level of expertise in this is questionable at best, usually none at all, and or just like you're hearing rumors, right? Like, okay, there's so many things I want to say here, because this article was, I think, affecting me as well, right? Like I feel like this had a big impact on all of us. This article was a powerful one. So shout out to, was the New York Times, was yeah. Shout out to them for this article. It's really good. But like I was thinking of this in another context, in the political context earlier today, right? But like it's important to have frameworks, right? Frameworks within your mind to like understand the world around you, to piece that together. And that comes through like educating yourself, right? To putting in effort to understand, like especially like critical aspects of life. Like if you don't have a framework, right, then you'll fall for anything. So like I don't have like a framework for like cars, like I'm not a big car guy.
Neither am I.
And so like I can be convinced of like lots of things about cars, right? If you say it with an authoritative way, right? I can be convinced, but that's because I don't have a basic framework. Now, a framework doesn't mean that you understand everything, right? Like you can't, right? Like for individuals, especially if you don't work in those fields, you can't understand it. But like you know enough, right, to like parse information. That's what the framework allows you to do, to parse that information. If you don't have a framework in politics, well then like anything a person tells you, yeah, you'll believe. You'll like fall for the dumbest things. Same thing for medical advice. Like I feel like a lot of these people like don't have a basic framework for medicine, because then you might think like, well, it might be a good idea to take this shot, right? Even if you have some questions, right? Questions you can ask a medical professional. They're right there. You're in the hospital with them, right? You can ask, and you begin. It's a good place to start investigating, right? But like if you don't even know where to start with your questions, right? Or like where to, like what to ask, then yeah, you'll fall for this. And so like I can imagine this mother, right? Saying no because she doesn't have a framework. Like she could have easily just heard, like she might not have end up in those Facebook groups, right? But someone else who had been there, who had been part of this movement or whatever, right, could have said a thing. She could have heard a few whispers, right? She could have heard she could have just like there's a general like like it's generally within the zeitgeist, right, that like vaccines are bad. If you're a type of person who doesn't pay attention to any of these things, right, who's not like part of MAHA, right, but who just like absorbs these things passively, like through osmosis, then like you can walk away. Vaccines, I don't know, man. Like it's a little sketchy. I think I'll just go without. So even without actually like engaging with that content, she could have actually taken that in. And because she doesn't have a framework to process, right, this stray bits of information, she makes a critical decision for her child who needed them to protect them and to make like good decisions. She makes a critical mistake there. And yeah, it was your fault.
I think so.
But
I think it's
that's the
neglect.
thing.
I think it's neglect.
So
I do.
that's
I think it's
where
criminal neglect. I don't know.
so that's where I think I understand how you recontextualize like those last 3 paragraphs, Prime. And like
Yeah.
I agree with your assessment in terms of like that last part, like the doctor is not saying to that particular mother who, let's say, made the bad decision of like she's not saying there's nothing you could have done, but she's at least from how I'm interpreting the article of like that middle paragraph when she said she looked this mother in the eye and told her it wasn't her fault. That's what I have. That's where most of my mixed feelings stem from. Of like,
Hmm.
is uh, like, so I understand definitely. Like, is it a place for the doctor to like, start, whatever finger pointing at the parent in that moment? Probably not. Like, I
Hmm.
understand maybe in that moment, trying to be compassionate, but like, is that the right
Is there
response?
nothing you could have done? Yeah.
I mean,
Or
Yeah.
like
I mean,
it's
it's
like
obvious. Like the problem is that it's I think it's criminal neglect. Personally, I think that you're
I lean
neglecting
towards
to
that, but
protect your child. I think
I'm
that
pretty
you're
mixed on that.
like okay. Let's think about this then. Okay, if it's 1 in 60 untreated infants that are having a bleed, a hemorrhaging. Okay, 1.7%. Imagine a scenario that is 5%, 10%, 50%. 100% of the time, the child is going to bleed and hemorrhage, and it could cost them their life. And you deny that medicine. Surely, we can say that that's neglect, right?
That
That
that would
that that
make
would
it.
be
I already lean
that's like
towards your position, but that would make it stronger for me.
that'd be like throwing a kid into a pool that doesn't know how to swim. Like we obviously like you failed to neglect like you to save that child, and you knew that that was going to happen. But like what is if it's 100% that we know, and like where is the line? Like what is the line where it's like actually still neglect when we have so much data to support it? Like 50%? I mean, if I was to have my kid learn how to ride a bike on a busy road, uh, how could anyone ever have seen that anyone would run over my child? How could anyone have known that that would have happened? It's like, well, what are you
Well,
talking
so
about? Like
I
that
understand what you're
happens all the
saying,
time
but
there.
to let's say, and again, I lean towards your position. I'm not like quite 100% there, but like uh to let's say somewhat steel man the other side of like the playing in traffic, like as opposed because like for as I think Prime pointed out, like this aspect of framework of like due to how people generally go about their daily lives, just like they have a framework of how traffic works and how cars interact with people, as opposed to a doctor saying, "Hey, your child needs a vitamin K shot." I would suspect probably even like half, if not most, people don't even know what vitamin K is. How it's important for clotting. They might even think that vitamin K is not a thing; it's just made up. Or vitamin K might be street for ketamine. I don't know, but like,
I kept thinking of Special K, which that's yeah,
So would it be
whatever.
okay?
Okay.
So would it be okay if like a human that had never seen a car before to go into like a road, and I don't know. I'm trying to think of an
I would
analogy
be I
here.
would be more charitable to that. Like, but that's where. But again, to be clear, like for me, the issue step, not the issue, but like what leads me towards like pretty much well, yeah, like more being more active and saying like, or being able to say like, this is the parent's fault. Okay. But like, uh, yeah, I think that I'm trying to think in terms of like, yeah, what's like the perfect analogy, which I don't think like there is one. Like, it seems like it's a very unique situation. Like a parent that has like is going on faith, but like here is where it's like the parent is going against like who should be, generally speaking, although there are obviously exceptions, but like they're going against the qualified expert opinion. Okay.
Exactly.
Uh, and that's where it's like, at least that's where like it breaks down for me. That's like the person where I think Prime brought up a good analogy of like, I have no framework of how cars work. And that's why, not that I have a car, but like if I would ever take my car to a mechanic, I would more or less have no choice but to like trust the mechanic. Unless I'm actually going to do the due diligence and the footwork and the effort to like vet what they're saying, I'm just gonna be like, hey, if this is what you say the problem is, I'm more or less going to follow your lead. Or like if I have any sort of suspicions, I will go to another mechanic and maybe get a second opinion.
But like
That's where
negligence
things.
of the law just isn't it negligence of the law isn't an excuse. Like, okay, here is criminal neglect in the United States as we define it. Criminal neglect or criminal negligence is a culpable mental state where a person fails to perceive a substantial and unjustifiable risk that their conduct or failure to act will cause harm when that failure constitute a gross deviation from the standard of care a reasonable person would observe. So this is a gross deviation from the standard of care that would normally be given by qualified medical professionals. These people are coming in and saying, I can do this. I can make these decisions, and these kids are being harmed because of it. I really do feel like the big problem here is that we are coddling anti-vax sentiment way too much in our societies. We are letting these people make these
I largely
decisions,
agree with you
and
there. Yeah,
the kids
but
are
then,
not consenting. The kids do not consent to
but
be an experiment for their parents to be shaman or
I
or
don't
whatever
I don't disagree.
whatever
But then
they're being.
would you go so far as to like pretty much as in like it's to make it like it has to it's legally mandatory, as in parents can't refuse it.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is the actual real thing. You don't have to consent to a vitamin K shot. That because it's not a vaccine. So just in the same way that you don't have to consent to have when you have open heart surgery to have do I have to can I cut here? Can I cut here? Can I cut here? No, we're doing the surgery, dude. We're gonna have the surgery and we're gonna do the surgery on you. When you sign the line, we're gonna get that done. So you don't get to consent on things. And these nurses don't actually have to get consent from the parents in order to do the vitamin K shot. They could say they can say I don't want the vitamin K shot, and the nurse could be like, all right, whatever, boom, done. It's already done. It doesn't matter. So it's actually it does. They don't
But
need to
out
get
of
consent.
curiosity, how like so is it the case? I'm ignorant on this, but like, is it the case that in the circumstances where the children or the newborn babies are not getting the vitamin K, do you know if that's largely the result of like the parents actively intervening of like they
Yes.
request it?
Yes,
Okay,
they have to be actively intervening and be there and like have a nurse that is susceptible or willing to like do this because the nurse could just be like, no, I'm not. I refuse. I
well, if
refuse to
that's
do this.
true,
And I'm going to do
then
it anyway.
arguably it's the medical professionals at fault if that's the case.
Yes, this is a big thing. This is I don't understand why like and someone in my family has had this happen where the nurse is like, "Oh, it's a vitamin K shot. Let's go see what the how the parents agree with it, if they agree with it or not." And they're like, "What are you talking about? Why are we asking them whether or not they need to have the vitamin K shot when we can just do it right now like for the best of the patient? Our patient needs the best medical care possible, and by denying them that, they're actually doing harm. The medical professional is
So
1% of the time they're doing harm.
I don't know. I feel like I disagree with this. Maybe my mind can be changed on this, but um, I understand where you're going with this, saying that like, hey, this is basic medical care, and why even deny them? Why should it be up for a question, right? Um, we usually don't check in with for everything, right? We just say like, okay, well, hey, well, like you came to us to deliver your baby and do like standard post birth care, right? And so like along those lines, just like with you, like you give the example of surgery, right? We don't then check in with you every step of the way to like get your okay when you aren't an expert in any of this. So I understand like your logic here. Um, but like, what about like something that the medical professionals think is necessary and just like good care, but like there is reasonable reason to believe otherwise, right? Like for instance, circumcision, right? Circumcision is just standard here in the States.
Well, the States is
In most
pretty
hospitals.
special in that regard.
I mean,
But
I think
Yeah,
I think circumcision is genital mutilation. I think that's a separate issue because that's
agreed.
not a medical
I
necessary
know,
thing.
I agree,
Mhm.
but right, the people who are pro circumcision will tell you, well, like that helps, like with uh protect against infections, because that area is so hard to clean, and so like this is good for like the general well-being of the child. And if they honestly believe that, right, and then circumcise your child without you knowing, right, or you specifically say, Dr. Greg, you say, hey, I don't want my child circumcised, and you're like, and then do it anyway, like you suggested for the special for the vitamin K, then like that would be a big problem for you, right? Again, I'm on your side in terms of like the what circumcisions are. It's disgusting practice, but like those other people, they don't feel like it's a disgusting practice. They think they're doing right by the child. So like, oh, in this case, like you would say they should check in with the parent, right? Well, then
Well, yeah, of
I
course, they
like
do, and they
other
do.
parents would feel the same way about the shot, though.
I mean, but one protects you from like something that has known harm versus the other one is a cosmetic theological
They don't think it's just
mutilation
that. They think
thing.
it's a medical protection, though, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
some of
So
them
it's
are
like
theological, but others are.
yeah. So it's like it's just completely different. I mean, there's yeah. I just I understand what you're saying. Where some people think that it's as important as that, but it's just there are facts of the matter. That's the thing. That there are just facts of the matter where they you can't just I don't know. It there it's just
I get that there are facts, but then now you're saying, well, this other person gets to adjudicate those facts, and like the parents simply aren't involved, and whatever decision they're going to make, like this, are going to have a lifetime of effects on this child, right? And so
no.
like I don't
Not
think
even
there's
occasional.
my problem is, like, I just don't think there's a simple answer, right? I don't think there's a simple answer as to say that, like, well,
I
yeah, the
agree.
medical professionals are simply right, and then they are allowed to do whatever to the child, right? Or that the parents are necessarily right. And the way that we've, like, we've landed here currently in this timeline, right, is that, like, well, we default to parents, we default to the caregivers, okay, like, do you consent to this thing, and then we go from there. It has clearly there are disastrous consequences, I agree, right? But like, in for instance, like in a country, right, that has a history of medical racism, yeah, actually I want a check-in, right? Like I don't necessarily trust the medical establishment like blindingly, right? They have proven um that they can't be trusted. Like and not just for, like, big conspiracy things, right? Like, there are, yeah, like having worked in a hospital, right? I've heard from other people, right? Like what, like those like nurses who are working on the floors think about their patients, right? The patients who come from like a majority black neighborhoods, how they talk about them, what they say, right? Do I want to put my hands and my health in their hands uncritically? No, actually, right? It just appear like I'm not going to assume the worst of my of the medical team that's either taking care of me or a family member, but yeah, I'm going to be critical of everything, right? Because you just have to be. Like, the person who lives with the consequences is you, right? Not them, you, right?
I
No,
mean, so
no, you
go
don't
ahead.
get to make a medical decision because in these scenarios when you don't have the license to make them. The decision is being and will be made by the medical professional or they just won't touch you, and they'll say you can leave without medical agreement, and you can sign the agreement that says that you're probably going to perish after this, and that's what it is. I mean,
Sure. What about What about medication? So I mean, this is an example, right? So this is more of a one-to-one example. Okay, medication. So in terms of okay, I keep saying special K, not special K. It's vitamin K, right?
I'm the one that
And
introduced the
vitamin.
ketamine angle, so it's all my fault.
No. But I was thinking of it previously. I was thinking of that. Um, yeah. So we're talking about vitamin K here, but there's all kinds of like medication that can have like um uh side effects, right? Ones that have a low chance of side effects, but they can say, well, this is the best for you. But doctors can be wrong, right? They can be sure of that this is the proper treatment plan, but then they just could be wrong, right? And if you had gotten a second opinion, you would have maybe found that out. Well, okay. Well, if you're saying that, well, you don't get a choice, but then are you saying that a doctor should be able to prescribe a medication or some sort of treatment plan, and then you have to go down that route? There's no choice there.
I mean, on some of them where it's the best case scenario where your life where your kid could die.
Who
Yeah,
decides that? Who
the
decides
medical
that though?
professional
You're
that
saying your kid,
understands that.
but you're just saying kid because kids is easier, right? Because it's saying, oh well, you're being negligent to a child. So I'm trying to take it away, even move away from that, right? Just say, hey, like we're talking about adults here. We're talking about adults. Adults trying to navigate the medical field, right? There is such a thing as medical injury that does happen in the world. And so like should doctors have the ultimate power to force treatment on an individual?
If they're getting medical treatment there at a hospital, yes.
Well, just to clarify, as in like, uh, is it more
They're
for if I'm
licensed.
yeah,
They're
but if I'm
licensed
under
by the state.
I
So
understand, I
it
understand.
is like
Well,
if they are not doing the best, like they are not experimenting on you. Cops, I mean, physicians aren't experimenting on you. They are doing the best action that they know to do based on scientific literature and studies that we have. So yes, so they either follow that line, that decision tree, or they are not doing their right by that patient, and they lose their license for that. That's why
And
we
you might
removed
lose
the
your
licenses
life
for
if they
the
are wrong,
physicians
right?
that spread misinformation during COVID,
They
for
lose their
example.
license, you lose your life though. Right? Like those are the stakes.
and
Yeah.
again, to
Yeah,
clarify,
and everyone is capable of going in and not going seeking medical care and staying at home, and if you think that you are the best possible person to make these decisions, then just stay at home.
okay, well, I need to I want to to clarify, are you is because if I'm understanding it correctly, it sounds like a binary of like, if you walk into a hospital and saying, "Hey, I'm looking for medical treatment," it sounds like, but correct me if I'm mistaken, of like, then you're surrendering to the system and you have to have faith in the system and then, like, just
Yes.
let them do their work. Ok
Yes, you can't.
that's
This is but like you guys don't understand. I don't think like how banal and easy and small this is. Like
no,
in the terms of
I
this,
understand.
it would be like I don't like iodine. I don't like sanitizing. Like my thing when you go into surgery, don't wear a mask. Just I don't really care about I'm not worried about like iodine. I want you to take that away, and that's extremely dangerous. That's like you wouldn't the medical
Yes.
professional wouldn't be doing that.
I don't disagree, but, like, here is where, like, I think you're being, like, too black and white. Because let's say for I can ground it in an actual example, okay, of, like, at least in Canada, okay? Although I think it's largely tracks in the States of, like, let's say for your typical, if your typical, endoscopy, okay, in Canada. When I say endoscopy, I guess I'll be more specific, a colonoscopy in Canada, okay? Your typical, sedation, is, some fentanyl, and some sort of sedative. I think Valium or Versed is probably like the most common one. But like, uh, technically, you can perform a colonoscopy, and like it should be an option to like refuse like the fentanyl or like the Versed if you don't want to be like sedated to that extent. But you're saying that should not be an option because like
You guys, you guys are
a gastro
comparing this to like things that are like that are 95.5 and like
I know, but
this
that's
is
why I clarified. That's why I clarified.
99.999%.
That's why I
Like, this is
clarified if it's a binary for you like that. I'm trying to tease out
it,
because then it's not a binary. It's like because
it
that's
is in
why
that you either make the right decision by your parent by for the kid or you don't. And if you don't make that kid that the decision by the parent by the kid, I think that it's neglect. Like what do you think that we have neglect for? Like as a like you know what I mean? Like how could anyone be charged with this if you think that
I agree.
that
Medical neglect is a thing. Like I think Corey, you and I both agree that medical
Yeah.
neglect is a thing, and
but
probably should be.
I think we're also on the same
Why?
page that as far
Why?
as
How
I
do
can
you
tell.
know? How
But
you don't think that
yeah,
people
but
just get better without
yeah.
any medical intervention?
Sure, but let me just clarify. So, and again, I'm ignorant, but as far as you know, Greg, like, is there like is there an increase in cases? Because like based off of like how you're framing it is like, and like in some sense, I agree with you. Like these parents should be charged for negligence, right?
I think at some point, yes, absolutely.
But then what? But then my question is like, well, why are they not being charged for negligence? There has to be some sort of reason for that. I'm
Because
not
this
saying
is
those are good
so
reasons,
new
but
that it's kind of like this thing that people didn't envision that there would be this many people that would be making this poor of decision. But now 1 out of every 60 untreated kids is now having a hemorrhage that could be, life ending. That could be, like that is wild.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's horrific. Absolutely.
I think God, I'm not a lawyer, so there's gonna be
How
a
dare you
lawyer in
not be a
audience
lawyer?
who's gonna say that Prime doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and I accept your criticism beforehand. Okay, I'll start there, right? But it seems like in terms of neglect, right, medical neglect, it would probably be something like um like an acute emergency that like, hey, your kid is like, okay, like these kids are hemorrhaging now, right? They're bleeding, like, and you don't take them to the hospital. Instead, like, let's have a prayer circle, right? That's a clear case of medical neglect, and I think that's what I imagine. Again, I'm not a lawyer, sorry, but like I imagine that's what those things usually look like. Your child comes down with some sort of heavy fever. They're freaking delirious, right? But you're like, no, it'll be fine, right? And you don't actually take them to get proper medical care. That's probably what medical neglect looks like. Not so much with these like decisions that like aren't like you know don't take place during an emergency situation. Um, I and like, and I don't know how you can have it be otherwise. Like, I'm just like people like should be able to make medical choices. Like, okay, like I'm trying to think of some other like good examples of this. Like
I just looked up some.
uh
So
okay.
basically, um, uh, basically criminal neglect for medical applications. We have clinician failures. But then what we're really talking about is withholding medical care. Faith healing. So faith healing things where you're failing to seek treatment for diabetic sepsis, untreated child infection in a child, failure to obtain care for an elderly patient or a parent with pressure ulcers or malnutrition, withholding insulin, seizure medication, or chemotherapy from a dependent. Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously nobody's been charged with criminal neglect for vaccines or vitamin K. But what I'm saying is that I could understand in a scenario, especially with vaccines or like us in um, an outbreak or something like that. At some point, man, at some point, like it has to. It, the harm is out there and it's known. And I feel like
I agree. Like,
endangering a
I
child, you're just
I
endangering
believe
your
I'm the one
child.
that brought up that I took issue with this doctor not pretty much saying like, "Hey," to the parents, "Not your fault." I
Yeah,
think there's a case to be made there. So it's like I'm sympathetic, but but yeah, it's hard for me to parse out of like where is the line of like when is it okay to have like or when is it permissible and it's not criticizable to have like a genuine false belief. Like if I push it to the extreme of like if for whatever reason, due to some crazy algorithm or some crazy Facebook groups, like a parent had the genuine belief, like the genuine, sincere belief that deep frying their baby was a good thing.
yeah,
Okay, it's like
exactly.
yeah, like
It doesn't matter.
if they end up doing that,
Yeah,
and would I be okay with the doctor saying, "Hey, it's not your fault. You just didn't know any better"? I'd be like, "That's kind of dumb. You should know that deep frying your baby." But like I say, you should know. But like I don't know what their algorithm was being fed to their brain or how their brain works. But like I can imagine a scenario of like some deranged person or just like the right circumstances. They just think like, yeah,
Well,
deep frying their
we can
baby is
have
a
we
good
can
thing.
have a more grounded example, right? Blood transfusions. That like
True.
we have medical, or I'm sorry, religious sects that think blood transfusion is against their god or whatever the hell, right? And so they refuse it. And if the patient happens to be their child, they might refuse it, right? So like, what should be done there? Now, like what should, like I would say that that child absolutely deserves um blood, but like that that would happen almost certainly within a an emergency situation, right? Like the child's losing a lot of blood, right? And we don't have time for negotiations. But like outside of that situation, like I don't know if we can force these things on people. Like in a an emergency situation, it all makes sense, right? Like, hey, like we gotta, like, you don't understand how this works. This I'm not gonna let my patient die, right? Like the doctor shouldn't let their patient die on their operating table or whatever. Then maybe they should take that emergency action. But outside of that, I mean, if I don't know all the reasons why a person would get a blood transfusion. I'm sure there's ones where like it's a non-emergency, right? They for as some sort of some sort of treatment plan. Okay, right? It's a treatment plan. It's something they need, but like, hey man, this person is ambulatory, um, and like conscious and can make their decisions. Should they be able to walk out and refuse that treatment? Like, even though yeah, they'll need it, there'll be consequences if they don't. Yeah, they should be able to,
Yeah, just like
right?
someone skipping out on dialysis. Like you can do that for maybe a day or two, but at some point, if you don't get it, you're gonna die or be dire consequences.
we can bring the blood transfusion example to the vitamin K shot. The hemorrhaging causes them to lose blood so that they get a blood transfusion, and
Yeah,
they have to get and at that point, the medical professionals don't have to get consent in order they get informed consent from the patient, but no, they're going to do the blood transfusion because the person's going to
that's
die.
an
So
emergency
like where's this
situation.
going to happen?
Agreed.
So
Emergency situation.
yeah, so
But
it's like if they don't do anything, the person is going to lose their life. So do you know what I mean?
no, that's what I'm saying. Saying, yeah, an emergency situation, right? Yeah, the person's going. I mean, that this is the example I brought up. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh, but like when the child has just been, just been given birth, right? They, they're well, I mean, they can be, but like in these cases, they're not an emergency situation, and like choices, and then there's a series of steps, series of medical treatments, that are standard, that we put these children through. Which as far as I agree with almost all of them, except for genital mutilation. Fuck that, right? Um,
Mhm.
but like, yeah, other than that, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else that I would push back on. But these are all choices. These are all choices.
uh,
Again, I'm not saying this is easy, right? Like
yeah,
I'm torn on this, right? Like I want to um I want to disincentivize parents from making these awful choices, these dumb choices, like you've been pointing out, Dr. Greg, right? But like my problem is like there is a line where um, institutional power, right, needs to give way to like personal freedom, or like disasters take place, right? Like if we just simply hand power to institutions blindly, right, and give them the power to punish people for not you know obeying, really, that gives a small group of people a lot of power over other people's lives. You can say lots of things are medically
But
necessary,
that's what that is.
right? And
That's
lots
what the
of things.
medical license is. That is what it is. That literally
No,
an
it doesn't give me
MD.
power. No, no. A
Yes,
medical
it
license doesn't
does.
give power over my life. No, actually,
Yes, it
no, they
does, to
don't
make
actually have
decisions
that.
for
Yeah,
your
no,
life
it doesn't.
it
No, it
does.
doesn't.
It
No,
does
it doesn't, Dr.
it
Greg.
does in
I
the
can go to a hospital and I can decide to submit myself to any number of things, right? But like the moment I go in and ask for help, I don't lose all agency. That's just not how that works, and it's not how it
yes, it
should work.
does. If you are under sedation, then yes, they're going to make the best
If
possible decision for
that,
you
yes, I
in
don't
that
have
time.
agency at that point, but when I do have agency, when I
Yes,
can make decisions, then I should be able to make decisions,
but
right?
that's my
Like
point.
I should be able. Okay, well, that's
My
not
point
your point.
my point is that like we as a society and as a state give people this power through the licensing procedure. That is what that's what it does.
Well,
And
No, it doesn't.
that's why we remove it for
No.
people that are criminally that are not following the best course forward. And that's why we remove that, because it's like we have given too much power to the wrong person to actually harm someone when they are vulnerable, right? When they can't make decisions for themselves, and we are relying on medical professionals to do the best thing possible.
yeah, but but so in my mind, that is disanalogous because, like, yeah, it's a unique situation with a parent or guardian, like, and a child, because it's like I understand. I think the point that you're trying to make, Greg, of like if a person is incapacitated, or they're unconscious and they can't make medical decisions, then like you have no choice but to put your faith in the system. Okay, but like assuming the parent is conscious, it's like, well, then they can intervene. I'm not saying they should. Again, I'm against parents making bad decisions. But like, uh, yeah, but the claim, it's also interesting, like that the license more or less gives them ultimate power over your life. That seems like, I don't know, a bridge too far. Of like,
They're going to make the best scenario, the best decision for
what
your life
yeah,
at that time.
when you're in an emergency situation, correct? Is that
Yes.
like
Yes. Yes.
yes, that is the qualifier. But like
Yes.
in the vitamin K scenario, that's not the case though. At least that we're not in that
It is
situation.
no, it is. That is the best possible scenario for you at that time.
But we have a presumably conscious parent that can make a decision.
But
And
you can't
and the
you're interjecting risk into a scenario where you don't understand the risks. So that's the problem, is that it's
But
like,
yeah, but
is it
yeah,
it's like in a scenario like you can get charged with murder even without actually murdering someone. You could all the way up to the actual thing. I don't have to pull the trigger in order to get called, charged with it. If I
sure.
if I premeditate it, if I load the chamber, if I have you in the, you can get, there can be things that happen up into that moment, and you can't going down that line and just being like, well, the kid didn't survive this time. It's like, well, you were criminally like negligent in pushing it that far to begin with. Like like babies like drowning. Like, oh well, I just, we were hanging out at the pool, and yeah, sure, the 1-year-old doesn't know how to swim, but we were hanging out, and you know what? It was bobbing up and down for a little bit. It figured out how to do it, and it didn't die this time. And you're like, well, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, why? that is the scenario. That's actually the analogy in my mind that makes the most sense.
I think I understand, but that's like, and this is where it's even difficult for me. That's why, again, like I have a very conflicted feelings, but like I lean towards like this being like negligent. But like you are from, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like you are coming from the place of like arguably being too informed, as in like too much because you have a framework of how this works, as opposed to like the parent with a drowning child, as Prime pointed out, I think correctly, of like they have a framework, should be largely due to their experience of like how water interacts with your breathing capability and all that stuff and swimming, versus again something abstract as a vitamin K shot, and do I inject this into my child? Like that is arguably like a foreign concept to many, if not most, people or parents. Like I know that you know the realities, and I know it, and I'm confident Prime knows and recognizes it as well. And so like we're operating from the framework of like whatever the appropriate framework, but like
But
with the
but you can't go to a lifeguard and say, my kid's fine. Water doesn't exist. Do you know what I mean? Like that isn't a that isn't a um that isn't a like you can't go to someone that's qualified, that's understanding to make that decision and say, don't worry about my kid, lifeguard. Like you don't have to worry about
Oh,
it.
wait.
You know,
Here's
my kid's gonna be fine.
way
You know
of
what I
looking
mean?
at this. So, hold on. Here's a question. And I forget the term for this, right? But like, do you believe in like medical, like patient medical directives? There's a term for this. Again, I forget what it is, but like, we're like, hey, if I'm ever incapacitated, right? This is what I want, right? Including like refusing care, right? Like if I'm brain dead or something, well then I don't want to go in a ventilator. Or if yeah, my heart stops, right? Like like do not resuscitate, like DNRs. Like are those valid in your
Yes, but that's
worldview?
because you are consenting about your life. The child is not consenting.
No, 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 no. Let's move away from the child, because you keep hiding behind the child thing. I talked to you about adults previously, right? I
That's
said, hey,
critical. That is a
adults.
critical distinction. I'm not hiding behind anything.
No,
That's a
hold on, hold
critical
on. But I
distinction.
brought, hold on. But I specifically had the example of me as an adult presenting to a doctor, presenting to an emergency room, and you said before, hey, once you go into the hospital and you say you need help, well, then now it's up to the medical professionals, and they get to decide. And I was talking specifically about adults. I made it very clear. I was talking about adults, right? And you agreed to
Mhm.
that we're talking about adults. Hey, when you go to the there and present there, then like they get to make the decisions. I said specifically, they don't get to override my agency. I still have agency. You said no. Okay. The a DNR is an act of agency, right? An act of patient agency. I'm going to write down these instructions, right? Even if I'm sedated or otherwise incapacitated, these instructions take precedent. Why is that different from me simply vocalizing to a doctor that I don't want this medical treatment?
Why is there? I mean, the medical treatment is presumably in the face of something that's happening. That's happening to you, and a DNR is something that could possibly happen in the future.
But it's happening now. They get activated when it's triggered, right? They look
I mean,
over your
DNRs are given are taken when like you already have like a terminal diagnoses, something like that. You're not going to just have a young person with a DNR. I honestly
hold
don't
on, yeah,
even
you
know.
can.
Is that true? I don't actually know.
I
Yeah,
don't
you
think
can.
that they would.
You
I
can
do
have
not
medical
think.
directives for anything.
No way. I genuinely do not think that they would think that you're out of your mind and that you're probably a 5150. I don't.
I had a young person within my family who had a DNR, who had they weren't terminal. They weren't terminal. They weren't expected to die, right? But they did have a severe of medical illness. And then when they were incapacitated, right? They it was activated, and they're gone. They weren't even. They were in their mid-20s.
Okay, well, if they had a diagnosis that they didn't, if they You know, if they wanted to end their life that way, then that is their thing.
There's
That's
advice, right, to say that you should actually like come up with these medical directives now, even before you're diagnosed with anything, right? Hey, like talk to your family, and decide like what for a medical plan, because you never know when this could happen, right? Like I could get hit by a bus, right? And then what does my family know? I've never sat down and talked to my family about what my wishes are, right? What my wishes are if I'm put on a ventilator? What my wishes are if I'm brain dead, right? That'd be up to them because we haven't discussed it. You've heard this advice yourself, Dr. Greg, right?
yeah,
You've heard the advice that like, hey, have these conversations and have it written down. So yeah, even if you are perfectly healthy, it's recommended to have these directives.
yeah. I mean, something that happens to you, but I'm saying like me. Like right now, if I'm healthy and nothing's going on with me, I just walk into a hospital and with a DNR for some reason, like they wouldn't listen to you.
No, they would. They have to. No, by law,
No,
it's not up to them.
See,
Right? That's the whole
my
point. It's a
my
medical
intuition does
contract.
that.
If nothing was wrong with you and nothing was wrong with you and you're perfectly healthy and you
It
just had
only activates when something happens. So like you could walk into a hospital for something that's presenting as minor, right? But still bothering. You show up in a hospital, but then it quickly escalates, like in a way that the doctor didn't see coming, you certainly didn't see coming, right? And then quickly escalates. That happens.
yeah, in extremely like yes, if you get in an accident or something and you're a vegetable and all these other
Not just
recruiting but if you I'm sorry, but if you can't just walk around with a DNR and be healthy and young.
I'm sure we can just look this up, right? Because I'm sure
We should probably. My intuition like strongly leans towards that you as a healthy person can have a DNR, but that I'm just going by intuition, largely intuition. Although I do have I have also some people in chat saying that they're fact checking. Like actually, it appears to be based off
Legally,
of theirs.
so short answer, legally, yes. In principle, practically, almost certainly not. The system is built to override you. So legal lawyer, practical lawyer. A DNR is a physician's order, not your declaration. You cannot self-execute one. A DNR implies that the responsible physician has in advance decided that CPR will not be performed. You need the physician to sign. A physician who believes CPR would restore a healthy 40-year-old to full life will typically refuse to sign and generally within their right to decline.
So if I'm understanding, it's like you can get one, but you need a physician to sign off on it. But even then, it can potentially be overridden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Post is close.
You're correct.
Is close to you. Post forms are the forms EMS is legally required to comply with in the field, but the eligibility gate is explicit. Only seriously ill people with limited life expectancy should have a POST, and a POST is not for healthy people. It is specifically intended for those who are terminally ill or medically frail. The instrument with the most enforcement power is definitionally unavailable to a healthy person.
It's definitionally unavailable to a healthy person, but like you can certainly become unhealthy. Like that's that's how insurance works, because we understand that you can suddenly become unhealthy. If we all knew into the future, right, our medical status, right, what's going to be along the lines, and insurance breaks down. Insurance works because none of us know, right? There's a bunch of healthy people watching right now, right? A few of us are going to be extremely unhealthy. And it maybe in a few years, maybe a few decades, maybe tomorrow, you're going to get all of a sudden extremely unhealthy. And so if you're correct. It can be overridden. That part, you're absolutely correct. It can be overridden. But like the point is, like when you are incapacitated, so like if you have the I believe advanced directives is the name. If you have the advanced directives, then you have it's an act of agency. The point is, right?
And you're outsourcing your agency.
Yeah. So why I still don't understand this. Why do you think that like so what about what they do in Canada?
Yep, like
the medical
assistance in dying.
Yeah,
or
medical assistance in dying. Yeah. So like, should you be able to well, yeah. First of all, yeah. Do you believe in a medical assistance in dying?
Yes, yeah, that's fine. But again, dude, this is again, we're talking about adults that are making decisions that like these are
well,
children that
parents
can't make
parents are
decisions for
adults.
themselves.
Parents are
It's
Yeah.
adults.
again, I think
That's
it's different. We're talking about criminal
okay.
negligence for a parent to a child. It's different. It's different, man.
Well, I understand how you perceive it as different, but like the parent is the decision. Like the parent is essentially the voice of the child.
But yes, but and they are not consenting, and the
But
patient,
the child doesn't
child
can't
is not
the child can't
consenting to
consent.
this. They can't
I mean,
exactly.
technically, you're essentially saying the child can't consent to anything, and then
Exactly.
like
Yes, as a parent, as exactly, as a parent, you can override them in order to do a lot of different things. Exactly. And that's why you can be charged with criminal neglect when you fail to give them you
but
know, and
you're almost
shield
saying like
them from harms.
parents have no parental rights on their children, though, and like at least that's sort of like what I'm leaning towards. At least that's how I'm interpreting your words. Like,
What do you mean?
because like if you're saying so I'm saying that like the parent is essentially like the voice of the child,
Mhm.
and from what I understood of your response is like, well, the child can't consent, and therefore you're like what I'm interpreting that is like pretty much like the parent can't do anything to intervene, like at all, no matter what. Like they have no like as soon as a parent walks into a hospital with their child, they have to have absolute faith uh, in the medical system, and they can't like they forfeit all parental rights.
To make overriding medical decisions where they're going to be able to micromanage, absolutely, yes. You don't have the
Sure.
right to go through like a brain surgeon, and while they're operating on your child and being like, hey, actually I think you should make this cut instead of this cut, I want this happen instead of
Sure.
this happen. You don't get to do that as a parent. No.
So what if, okay, both individuals well, both individuals in a situation have medical training. So in this case, the parents have medical training and the doctor has medical training. But the parents are going to go there because obviously the doctor's there. They're equipped, and maybe it's something they can't do themselves at home, so they go to a hospital. Now, according to you, they've lost all agency at that point, right? They've taken their child in, but they know, right, what medical treatment should happen, right? The doctor has a different opinion, and the doctor, the attending doctor, is incorrect. At that point, it's too late, correct? Right? Like the doctor is going to follow that plan. Now, maybe they can lose their license later on, but
Yeah.
the parents, the parental doctors, they can't do anything about that at that point, right? Like
Yeah.
they're locked in. The moment they walked in and presented their child, then they're locked in, correct?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. I mean, if the towards
Ridiculous.
this initiative, it is. That's just what it is, dude.
That's
Well,
not what it is. It's not
That
what
is
it
what
is.
it
It's in
is.
your head,
Yes,
Dr. Greg.
yes.
It's not what it is. That's what you want to happen. That's not what it is, though.
Like,
Right? We
bro,
know that's not what it is. That's not
there
what
was
it is.
there were medical treatments that were given like that weren't given to my mom with for cancer, and I'm doing research, and I'm doing scholarly research. I know that they're available for her exact mutations, for her ability, like, and I'm like, we need to get these, we need to go to do this, this is what we need to do. And it didn't happen. You know what I mean? Sometimes just because you are like more well informed than the oncologist or something about this particular thing, they're following their best practices. Do I get to like charge him with neglect? Not necessarily, because he was following the best practices that he knew at the
I didn't
time.
say that. Hold on. Sorry, we don't have to introduce that. I'm saying, like the thing that we're focusing now is just on
Mm.
agency. We just haven't gotten a past agency. We haven't gotten to criminal consequences, right? So, like two people who are equally credentialed, right? Because these
Mhm.
credentials, these licenses, apparently override other people's will. Okay, right? So they both have these things, but one of them is actually it's activated in this case because they're the attending physician, they're the doctor, and the other ones, right? They're maybe from another hospital or whatever, right? And they can't simply use their licensure in this place. They've now submitted themselves to the care of this facility. And then in your mind, hey, the moment they do that, right? Even if they know better, they can't say, hey, like, don't do this treatment to my child. Don't do an active treatment. There's one thing to even with a whole treatment, right? There could be plenty of reasons why you withhold treatment, but they're watching as the doctor is putting the pill in the kid's mouth that will do active harm. They know they will do active harm. You're saying no, they can't refuse that. Like I know it's gonna happen. Me with my doctor knowledge, right? I know it's going to happen. The kid's going to have a bad reaction to this. I know it, right? But the doctor is not listening to me, and he's going to do it anyway. And you're saying at that point it's too late. You walked in, you picked the wrong hospital. You walked in, and now they have all the power.
You have to leave. You have to leave.
Wait a minute. Well, how can I? Hold on. No,
you
said before. You said before, first of all, right? They
say I'm going against medical things, and I'm.
Oh, hold on! Now we have agency. Now we can leave. Yeah. Now we can refuse care. That would be refusing care. We can refuse care now.
Yes.
No. Before this entire time you've been saying otherwise. This entire time you've been saying otherwise.
No, I haven't.
That's what this entire argument is about. You've been saying you can't refuse care.
You can't. There is a path there. It's a river, a lazy river of science of how it is. If you either go on it or you don't. Like that's what it is.
This is why I gave the example of both being doctors, right? Because yes, as we agreed previously in the past, scientists aren't infallible, right? They make mistakes.
True.
The learned people make mistakes all the time. That's okay, right? Especially if they're trying their best. In this case, the attending doctor is making a mistake. They know it. And you're saying, and before you were saying that it was too late, right? Like, there's only one path forward, whatever they decide. Even if they are going against the science.
You're unconscious, and you have you're
stop introducing new things like unconscious. I gave you a perfectly good working scennario, right? When the two parties have equal knowledge, but one make a bad decision.
Those were the scenarios where yes, you don't get to micromanage what the best care is, but and in this scenario when you have two like medical doctors that have similar things and they're doing harm to your patient, like which is like a little farcical, but it's okay, yeah, I mean, you would
That's
say
not farcical. People have medical injuries happen.
I'm leaving the event against medical advice, and I'm leaving.
Okay, all right. Okay, apparently now we have an agency. Okay, I mean, if that's the case, then the mother, she will leave the hospital with refusing the vitamin K shot, right? And say I'm refusing medical care, which is what they did.
The parents, well, no, they stayed. And then they got the blood transfusions, and then they got an emergency vitamin K shot.
No. I mean, when just after giving birth.
The article we were talking about, the one they got a blood transfusion and an emergency vitamin K shot. They didn't leave.
No.
But I believe this was after like birth, and like I think they were probably taken home at some point, and then they had to return due to the medical emergency.
Yeah. Two incidences. One after giving birth, that's when the vitamin K is originally supposed to be administered, right? They refuse. And then later on, they come in with the bleeding, right? So there's two instances here. And the first one is the thing that we're discussing. So like in that case, right, as what happened, right, these parents, they come in after they give birth, right? And after the birth, they say no. They refuse. Now you're saying they can refuse. They have the ability to refuse. They should be able to walk out and refuse care. That's what they're doing, correct?
Theoretically, they could, but yeah, I think that
not theoretically, actually.
But you should absolutely get charged if the bad thing does happen, that we know what's happening. I mean, your scenario here is this pill that we know is doing harm versus a shot that doesn't do harm, and all it does is protect people.
The
So that, I
doctor
mean,
thinks it's not going to do harm. The doctor believes it's going to help the kid. But the parents who have medical training know they will do the opposite.
but that's not what's happening with this shot.
I
Like
didn't
that,
say it was hypothetical. That's what the hypothetical is, though.
I know,
That's the hypothetical.
I know,
Testing
but
your
hypothetically,
okay. I think we reached I
Well,
think we can move past.
but
Go ahead, you go first.
I'm just curious. Well, a couple of things, like based off of how I'm understanding what you are saying. It's like, more or less like if you're going into the hospital, or let's say if you're a parent with a child going to the hospital, you are like more or less like placing a lot of faith, or like, you're more or less like, I think more as you frame it, of like doctors have this special license and they more or less act as God in those facilities. Do you not think that can lead to emboldening some bad actors if that mentality is
yeah, it
actually?
happens all the time. Yes, and that's why we need
don't you?
strict overhead.
But don't,
That's why we need strict, like,
But it's
we need to
already
be
too late.
going
The moment
after
you
the
walk
ones
in,
that
though.
are using their license with incredulity.
But
into
you're
the
emboldening them though. But you're arguably
No,
saying like
that's
you.
just the fact of the matter, dude. It's just the fact, once you're in the
No,
hospital and once you're there, the
I'm
medical professionals know more than you, and you should be like,
I don't
you're
I don't
giving up
disagree.
some of your stuff to them. Yeah.
I'm generally on the side of medical professionals, especially as someone who has received a lot of medical care. But I'm curious, like, uh, let's say, for example, a parent brings their child. Okay, I don't know. Let's say they're 10 years old. Okay, and turns out this child has appendicitis, and like based off of the doctor's analysis, they say, well, this appendix needs to be removed. But then the parent says, I don't want. There's, let's say, the small chance of the appendicitis resolving on its own. Does the parent have the right to refuse that surgery for their child?
I mean, like, it honestly matters, like, the percentage, I would say. I don't know. Like, I don't know. If it's a 50-50, like,
But I don't think a
like
doctor will be able to really
95%
like
chance that
really
the
good.
child's gonna die, then I would say that you're pretty much, you should it would be criminal neglect to say no. And that's what I was talking about. What's the percentage? If it's 100%, then we can
I,
we'll
I
all
don't I
agree
don't
that it's
I don't
criminal
know that a
neglect.
doctor can
But
give
what is it?
100.
What's the line?
I
50%, 20%, 10%? It's not 2%. So, like, what is it? I don't know.
I agree, but I don't know for sure. But I imagine like a doctor saying, because I'm in my experience, like doctors don't really want to give like concrete numbers that's like super confident. But like in that scenario, I think they would say, like, based off of like my clinical judgment, I think your child needs to have this appendix removed. And I can understand a parent. I'm not saying this is a good decision, going against the clinical judgment of the doctor, but I can imagine if like the parent knows, like, well, there's a possibility of this resolving on its own. Like, I think that's a potentially equally valid. And here we don't have it. I don't think we can really truly calculate the percentage in that scenario. But someone feel free. I'm not a medical professional.
No, we know they can't, right? Like, here's an example. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, Corey, but
That's
I'll
okay.
pass the mic right back to you. Like, this comes into effect when we're talking about abortion regulation or abortion bans, really, right? Where they'll write into a law, well, like there has to be like an 80% chance or something, like of the patient dying, right, before you, like, a woman dying before you can like intervene. Well, like, how do you know that? The doctors don't know that. There's like no solid number that you can pull out, right, to say that, oh, this person will certainly die if I don't do a medical intervention, right? As we've saw when those abortion bans were first rolling out, all right, the stories have died down now, but like they're still happening. Like doctors were just like refusing care. Like, I can see this person is in rough shape, but if I make the call, like do an abortion here, to protect the life of the mother, right? That's how the conservatives like to frame this thing, right? If I try to protect the life of the mother, but a jury later on says that, oh, it wasn't certain, right? Like another medical professional comes in on the side of the prosecutor and says, "Oh no, they could have survived, right? This was unnecessary." Well, then I lose my license. Then I not just losing my license, I can go to jail, right? I can be fined because this number is imaginary, right? This this whole protect the life of the mother, that clause is BS. It's just another way of ban because these percentages aren't a real thing. But now you're saying, well, yeah, I mean, if the percentage is 50 plus one, then maybe they should be forced to have the surgery, right? Depends on what the numbers are. But the numbers aren't clear like that. There aren't. There's no like number. There's not like a number tattooed on their forehead that tells you this person's going to die. What the chances are? There's nothing.
I mean, we have stuff like that for like vaccines for rabies. You know, I mean, you're certain to die if you don't get the rabies vaccine. You know, and if you had
I agree.
a child that was bitten by a rabid dog, and you told that child, you know, and you told that medical professional, no, I'm anti-vax, and our kid is not going to have any type of vaccine, and the medical professional is like, your child will 100% die if you don't get this vaccine, you would absolutely get charged with criminal neglect by refusing that vaccine. 100%.
I like, to me that is more black and white because like pretty much having true rabies is essentially a death sentence. I think there's only like 1 or 2 reported cases like in history of anybody really surviving rabies.
No, hon. There's a difference here. There's a difference what we're talking
I agree.
about. Yeah, because when we there's 2 percentages here. There's one based on past cases, right? And the accumulation of past cases, right? There's some medical report that says like people have gone through these this population that has gone through these medical circumstances. They have 32% survival rate, right? But that does not necessarily translate to this individual case. The person who's presenting in front of you right now. Hey, what is the percentage? People they'll ask the doctor, what's the chances this person's going to die? Right? Well, this person has unique medical history, right? Unique interactions. And what's that number? I mean, they can try, they can guess. But again, it's BS, right? Like these numbers. When the doctors have consequences, when there'll be consequences if they quote unquote give a bad number, right? So like in the example I gave you, when they can suffer criminal consequences, right? If a patient isn't certain to die, right? If it wasn't medically necessary to protect the life of the mother, well, then all of a sudden they're extremely cautious, right? Doctors who would have said otherwise, oh yeah, of course this is necessary. All of a sudden they don't want to do it because there's no way to actually prove like this person was 100% going to die, right? There was a small chance, however small, that they might have been able to recover from this procedure, and so like the baby didn't have to be aborted.
Yeah, I mean that's why a lot of these cases in a lot of these Republican states are people are waiting till the mom crashes. The mom is in septic shock. Like they're literally blood pressures plummeting. Everything's gonna like she's actively dying until
There's no status meter
go in.
that says the percent of chance they're going to die or not, live, survive, or recover. Like there's no status meter there to cleanly tell you these things, right? And so you have no solid proof when presented to a jury, right? That says, well, we had no choice whatsoever, but to do the abortion. But in any case, I mean, we're moving away from like the main topics. And Corey, I did interrupt you previously.
No, it's okay. No, I think like so. I understand. I think I understand what you're saying. Like for me, like, and again, I think these are like tragic, harrowing stories that, again, going back to my original point of like, I'm the one that brought up like, I'm not. It doesn't feel so great when the doctor says to the parent, "That's not your fault." Like, I think it kind of is. I think there's a strong case to be made that it is the parent's fault. But I understand the doctor being compassionate. But like at the end of the day, and I would not want it. I would not want this to be the case. But like, I don't actually know the numbers, but it is probably the case that the children, or rather, the children that have parents that are refusing the vitamin K shot for their children, like probably the majority end up like largely okay, but like we have really bad collateral damage, and that's where it's like the balance is not it's not a rabies situation. Is basically my ultimate point.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what that percentage is. I don't know where, Russian roulette is technically not dangerous the majority of the time, but it's still not it's not you'd still be charged by handing that revolver to that kid. You know
But,
what I
like,
mean? And if
I
that
agree with you,
revolver was if there was 60 open chambers and one bullet, that would still be that's still not
I
okay.
agree.
Yeah.
But that's where it's like, well, we're coming like I know that you know what vitamin K is. I know what vitamin K is. Prime Pie has a really good idea of what vitamin K is, and that the vitamin K shot is essentially harmless, if not largely beneficial, clearly, and saves lives. And so it's like the cost benefit analysis, as in like in terms of the cost benefit analysis, like it's pretty much all benefit. And I don't know, maybe the only cost is like, maybe the mild pain that induces for injection, and maybe, I don't know, some mild injection site irritation. And maybe, I don't know, that's about, unless a newborn has vitamin K allergy or some, obscure condition that I don't know about. But like,
I know that vitamin K comes after vitamin J. So
F1 in chat said the clinical mortality risk scores, which is acute medical care, exist in in constant use. Interesting. I didn't know that. We actually have one of the people that is, I mean, you probably heard her story of her daughter. They went in Texas to 3 times to the ER, were denied 2 times. The 3rd time went in, that they had waited until she was in septic shock to try to actually treat her daughter, and they weren't able to resuscitate her, and her child died completely preventably because of that. So it's yeah, thank you for sharing, Lauren. It's awful. And she said she spoke with an attorney from the Center for Reproductive Rights today, and they want to speak with me. They want me to speak to the media about the ectopic. Same doc, same hospital that failed to treat. Oh man, I'm 99% sure I will, but I have severe anxiety about speaking to people. Yeah, Lauren, I can understand. I can totally understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she was your
Yeah,
stepdaughter, but yeah, absolutely, no, Lauren. That's totally fine. It's still your daughter, and totally understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awful stories, but this is, I think, like, the bigger point is that in the next story that they have, like, I think that people are being pushed this onto them. Like we talked about this before, that these decisions are being pushed onto people, and they are not able to make decisions in their right mind, because they are like they are not capable of making these decisions. And when they do make decisions that are for the best of their child, right, they do get the vaccines, they do get the vitamin K. You have an entire, like, media algorithm pushing to say that they did the wrong thing, that it was actually poison, that it's actually toxins. And here's the story from the New York Times. Plaintiff for anti-vaccine group's suit is charged with murder of her twins. A lawsuit filed by the Children's Health Defense, an organization founded by RFK Jr., claims that vaccines caused the twins' deaths, but a grand jury in Idaho has indicted her on charges of suffocating them. On May 1st, 2025, a young mother in a small Idaho town said she found her 18-month-old twins dead in their bed, cold and lying on their bellies. 3 days later, she sat for an interview at the Children's Health Defense, the anti-vaccines nonprofit co-founded by RFK Jr., claiming that vaccines caused their deaths. The story was sensationalized, billed on the group's website as breaking news of toddlers who were born and died together following vaccinations. The organization quickly embraced the woman, Andrea Renee Shaw, naming her the lead plaintiff in 2 legal actions against the nation's top society of pediatricians, claiming the organization, the American Academy of Pediatrics, lied about the safety of childhood vaccines. Then, last week, after a nearly 14-month investigation by the Piatt Police Department, a grand jury indicted Miss Shaw, 23, on charges of murder, claiming that she suffocated the children in an act that was either premeditated or taken in the course of aggravated battery. The police and the county prosecutors did not release details about the evidence or return calls from the New York Times. Quote, "This arrest is the result of a lengthy and thorough investigation conducted by the Payette Police Department with invaluable assistance from numerous parties," they said.
Yeah, this at least from what I extracted from the article, it seems like just like the Children's Health Fund is latching on to something they can weaponize. And that obviously, it seems like there's an investigation. Like, do we know for sure that this individual, let's say, suffocated, or like they were the ones that essentially killed their children? I guess, no, but let's say there's a strong case you made that it's not the vaccines.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I think that what happens is that you have extreme guilt given to these parents, and they feel like they are being that they did something so malicious to their kids that they have to, like that in a sick way in their brains, like fix the problem that they caused. And I think that's what's causing this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just curious. Well, yeah, obviously I want to see how this investigation plays out. But like, even if it, yeah, I don't think there's any vaccine, as far as I know, that can cause not just one but two deaths in that nature.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. I mean,
It would have to be like
that's
the most obscure,
But
rare case.
but in their mind, that is what happens, right? They're I'm sure they're thinking it's SIDS related or something like that, and they could that how they put the bodies or something. That's probably what she's thinking, that, oh, it'll just be this.
Yeah, or I don't know. It seems like from what I remember of the article, it's like the Children's Health Defense reached out to these parents when they learned of this situation. At least that's the sentiment that I got. It seems like the well, yeah, no surprise, the Children's Health Defense is just looking for anything that they can weaponize, basically. And this seems to be like well, maybe not the perfect case, but a situation
Yeah.
where they can do that. And like, it would not surprise me if they, and I think I got the sentiment from the article of like, they planted the seed in the mother's brain that it was the vaccines.
Yeah, I mean, this has been something that I've really, people get frustrated when I talk about this. I'm not diagnosing this with anyone, but what it feels like is these algorithms and these anti-vax conspiracies push people into a state that's very similar to like a paranoid schizophrenia, where they basically they're unable to distinguish reality from like these conspiracies, and they get into these the manic states that are causing them to do like that, basically incapable of making decisions based off of analyses and data, and it's just it's so dangerous. These algorithms are pushing people into these states where they're doing things that are literally out of their mind. What are the symptoms of schizophrenia? Delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, unusual behavior. you know um I feel like it's something that, like, in conspiracy people, that you see a lot of this. Like, everything becomes the conspiracy, right? Everything
Mhm.
is like, it's ever encroaching, ever encompassing, um, and it's just, and it creates this level of, you know, uh, these parents who in a scenario where they shouldn't have to know what vitamin K is. They shouldn't. They shouldn't have to know what adjuvants are. You know, like we have this, it's settled science. We made such a big progress that they don't have to know about it. In the same way that you don't need to know what a CPU is and a GPU is in order to own a computer. You just type on the keys, man. You know, but at the same, but what they're doing is they're going in and they're pulling out, you know, things on the motherboard trying to make it go faster. You know, it's like the Homer Simpson speed holes. Like they're just taking a hand, like, you know, a pickaxe to the computer because they're trying to make it faster. It's so sad.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's that. It appears to me that like yes, algorithms are. I don't know if they're creating the situation or just making it worse. But like, but it is interesting. Like, clearly, it's not happening to everybody. It seems like and I don't know what the prerequisite personality profile that you need to have in order like to be caught up in these not only just caught up in these algorithms, but these specific sort of like, well, anti-vax algorithms are like, you know, can I foresee the right circumstances where I get sucked in? I would like to think no, but I can imagine a Clockwork Orange scenario of someone just prying open my eyes and just subjecting me to reel after reel or TikTok after TikTok, and I eventually come up with anti-vax beliefs.
Yeah.
But is that what's happening with these people? I don't know. Like, yeah, I'm curious. Maybe I should look. I don't know if there's actual data, but like, let's say your typical. If we know of an anti-vax person who is claiming that they have the knowledge of like I became anti-vax due to all of the stuff that I see on social media, then I'm just curious of like how much time are they spending on social media? Is it really just like are these type of people that are spending like 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours of their day, just reel after reel?
Yeah, I think that is something that we have to do as a society. We have to be able to come back. Oh, thank you, 5 minute. Appreciate you being here. I think that we have to have like some type of posthumous, like you lose your right to know what like we should be able to see your last 1,000 stories on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Like if you do some act or something, you know, like go do something at a school or you know what I mean? Like we should have some way of knowing like just for like quality checking, like what were you being fed? You know, like what were the last 1,000 stories that you were seeing? And then, you know, we see a bunch of stories about this stuff, like, you know, like the guy that shot up the CDC, you know, like 200 rounds
Sure.
killed
Yeah.
someone, like, you know, what was he like? What was his media? And if that's 1,000 stories of how evil the CDC was, and they're such bad people, like
And how
Facebook or
Fauci is
whatever.
the devil.
Yeah, exactly. The TikTok should have to answer for that and be like, yeah, okay, maybe we won't do that. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll chill a little bit and on it next time. You know, like I think
Uh,
that there could be some type of like you know
I
accountability.
I agree. That would be useful information. Like, but yeah, do we? Is there a way? Is there a world that we can have access to that data? Or let's say, what I imagine government would have to intervene into these companies, saying, "Hey, you have to share this data
Hey,
with
Bobby.
us in this circumstance." If someone
Yeah,
has,
I
let's
mean,
say, been flagged or whatnot,
I guess you
or let's
do.
say, or if you can do whatever, a retrospective, like we know this person who shot up the CDC. Can we get the data? If they had a social media account, like what were they being fed? Uh, and then
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, does that introduce privacy issues? I don't know, but
I mean,
at least that's where my mind
privacy
goes.
issues, it's such a weird argument because like that data is already being sold to other corporations. Like Google is
Sure, I
buying that
agree.
information and what you like and how you like to watch your feed and all that kind of stuff. Like Google gets access to that. All you know, all these other companies buy that information off of you. But in order to prevent the most grievous things that exist in the world, we can't have access to that as a government, just as like a quality, QC.
Or as a people, like I think probably, and although I'm pretty sure, or I'm reasonably sure, public sentiment towards social media apps and companies is not so great. But I actually don't actually know for sure. But I'm
Mhm.
leaning towards they don't view them all. But I think public sentiment would skew even more negatively if people were able to see, or if through access to this data of like, oh, this CDC shooter, we now know that these were all the reels that they were being fed leading up to that, and it was all pretty much as you characterized, anti-CDC and Fauci's the devil. These are all criminals. I think public sentiment would shift even more towards negative. And if they're able to, if in fact it's true, if it holds true that we can see a direct connection or a more direct connection between what is being fed to them on social media and their behavior, their potential criminal behavior in the real world. And then I think then people will be able to see the connection. But then it's like, is that, do we want to live in a world of like the government can just go in at any time and just say, hey, give us the data from this person? I don't know.
They already do though. They already keep the NSA like at catalogs.
Okay, if they do, but then then arguably, like, I don't know, then things like the CDC shooter should be preventable, unless there actually is no link. Then, right?
Yeah, I mean, presumably there should be, like, there are safeguards, but yeah, I mean, it's just not. It's too many systems, too many links that aren't cohesive. I guess that I think that's the big problem. But anyway, Prime, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't know if it matters what the public's opinion on these things are. Like we already see when like hate crimes happen, right? Like we can trace the online steps of these like shooters or whatever, and we know they go down a lot of like right wing pipelines. That doesn't really change anything though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it? Like, I don't know, like, what that ever gets us.
Well, I agree with your characterization, but if we had the exact actual catalog of reels that was being shown and people can access it and see like, here's the last 1,000 reels in the last whatever X amount of hours, that I think
we can see their. I don't know. We can also see the. Yes, I've never seen a situation where we get like the exact like catalog of videos they went through, but we know the creators that they listen to, right? Like sometimes they're even kind enough to write a manifesto saying, "Oh, this is these guys I listen to," right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know that unless unless the general public is familiar with these creators. I don't know that it will. I'm speculating again. I don't actually know for sure.
Will the general public take the time? If they're not familiar with the creators, will they take the time to look at like the exact videos that they went down?
If it's like maybe 10 reels, I think potentially, because I mean, reels are popular for a reason.
I mean, so with the assumption that it only took 10 reels to radicalize a person, I mean, maybe, but like.
Oh no, I'm giving like a small example. But like, but it's again, I think if I suspect it will crystallize it more for people. I could be wrong. Well, obviously I'm speculating, but I think if they're
like, I mean, I'm not trying to like bust your balls on this or anything like that. I'm just like, I just don't see like, I don't. We live in a society where we have a lot of dangerous individuals who aren't receiving like proper psychological care, and they're walking around. They got like a whole bunch of influences, right? For most of these people, we'll never know what those influences are, and they'll do a thing, unfortunately, and people will get hurt. For some of them, especially in this new digital world, right? We will know, especially since we have now like. It's a paradigm, right, among like mass shooters to write a manifesto, right? That's part of the game. Write a manifesto. That's a good way to get remembered. Did you write a manifesto? Was it good? You should get the spell checked, beforehand, because it's going to be on the media, right? So like in this case, we have actually an unprecedented view into the minds of like these like unhinged individuals, which we just simply never had before. Right? This is like a new thing in history, really. Right. And yeah, some of them tell the creators, explain which creators they may follow online. But like one way or other, like the public is like aware, like that online radicalization is a thing. That's another thing that's in the cultural zeitgeist, right? Like online radicalization. Now, some people think, well, the right is the one who radicalizes more. Others say the left radicalizes more. But like both sides agree that radicalization happens online. Okay, now that we established that, what do we actually do about it? Like I don't know if the public, one, is equipped to figure it out, and two, like can hold on to these tragedies long enough to actually make some sort of to
Fair.
make much of a policy change, right? Like, um, especially in a country like the United States where we have these tragedies all the time, right? It's just a countdown until the next major shooting, right? Because we have like shootings every day in America, right? Mass shootings happen every day. It's just like one of a big enough body count to actually make the news,
That's
because
true.
most of them are just they're not worth talking about here in the United States. So, yeah, in some mass casualty situation, like yeah, it happens. We generally just move on. I mean, you spend actually an incredible amount of like of media time like on like the big ones, right? Um, and there's a lot of focus and there's a lot of wondering why and all that. Like people, the public ask why, but then nothing really happens. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like after all this time, I don't know if, like a catalog of videos. Well,
No, that's fair. Your skepticism is justified. What I would say is like, I think it's an experiment worth trying, and if it does nothing, then we can just go back to how it was before.
I want to be the bearer of bad news here. Like I want, I want to be able to tackle this. Like this is not a good thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to defend this ask. I want us to take some sort of action. I'm actually not sure what action to take. I won't. I don't
Yeah,
have a
neither do
policy
I.
statement
I'm
for
just
this.
like thinking out loud.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, yeah, all the points that you made are valid criticisms to what I brought up. Uh, but then I still want to run the experiment.
Yeah, I mean, like whether or not like this mom that you know presumably implicated in killing her kids, like what was she being fed? Like what was she if she was getting fed 1,000 stories of how vaccines killed or are going to kill her kids, and she in her mind, she's thinking, "Oh my gosh, I could take agency, like I can do something about this. I could, help fix this." It's like then, I think that whatever social media platform should be definitely held responsible for some aspect of it. I think we're all, kind of like in my criminal negligence example or this, like I'm trying to figure out transparency of the algorithms. I think we're genuinely fighting new threats that we as like a, society or global community, are we're all connected on this stuff, and we need new and innovative ways in order to solve these problems. I don't think anyone has the answers, but these are honestly the questions and the topics to really like be talking about in order to try to figure this stuff out. Um,
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
the RFK is polluting people's minds, and he's also causing a huge cluster, an outbreak of stomach illness across the United States. Public health experts said there are more cases than usual of the disease caused by cyclospora, which is spread through contaminated food and drink. It's happening right now, ladies and gentlemen. More than 400 people across 18 states have been infected with cyclospora, a parasite that is transmitted through food and water contaminated with feces and other, which causes stomach cramps, nausea, vomiting, and severe diarrhea. At least 20 people have been hospitalized, according to the CDC. New York, Texas, Illinois, Michigan have the most cases so far. Sporiasis, the disease caused by the parasite, is most common during the spring and summer months when people are eating a lot of fresh produce like basil, cilantro, spinach, and berries, which have been implicated in the past outbreaks. The illness has have sparked alarm since case numbers are unusually high and have no identified source. The CDC, which tracks infectious diseases, reported on July 1st that there has been 145 cases across 17 states, but there's usually uh only a couple of 50 cases per year, but now there's hundreds basically. And the RFK actually took down the part of the CDC that tracks and looks at parasitic diseases and monitors these things. So yet like another thing that we are caught with our pants down on.
Well, I'm glad I'm in Canada. Put it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
wouldn't surprise me if it made its way up here.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I can't. These people are just so unserious, man. It's so it's. I wish I wish it wasn't so predictable.
Yeah.
And then our
Well,
last two story. Go ahead, Corey.
I just say this jokingly, to be clear. This is all a joke, but my joke is a bad joke. But like, this is nothing to worry about. As in, if you're healthy, you know, you will not get infected by this. Just let your immune system handle it. I'll be fine.
Yeah, easy peasy, easy peasy. Last stories for basically
We could
human
save
health
my
is
we could save my weather story, like if you wanted.
okay. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a much larger conversation to be had for
cool.
next week.
Yeah.
Good point. I like that. Okay, awesome, guys. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. Thank you for the chats. And yeah, do you guys want to do closing statements?
Yeah, go for it, Prime.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Much appreciated. Stimulating conversation. You can find me at Twitch, YouTube, Kick, technically TikTok at Prime Kai, PRIMECAYES. Love to have you. Do debates. They're a lot of fun. Come through.
And yeah, as always, grateful to be here, and always appreciate the spirited back and forth. But yeah, you can find me on Twitch, CoreyCam84, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram, Substack, TikTok. It's Corey Gamble. And yeah, looking forward to next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you as always.